So the universe born from a black hole exploding.
Keep going.
They were wrong about everything except one thing. His body did betray him. But his mind? His mind soared beyond the boundaries of space and time itself. This is the story of a man who was told he had no future, but gave humanity a glimpse of eternity. How far would you go to understand the universe if you knew you were running out of time? Stephen William Hawking was born on January 8, 1942, in Oxford, England. It was exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo, a cosmic coincidence that would prove prophetic. His father was a medical researcher. His mother was a political activist. They lived in a world at war, but they filled their home with books, ideas, and endless curiosity. Stephen was different from the start. While other children played with toys, Stephen took them apart. He wanted to understand how everything worked. Clocks, radios, model airplanes. Nothing was safe from his relentless need to know. His family called him Einstein as a joke. They had no idea how close to the truth they were. But Stephen wasn't a perfect student. He was brilliant, but lazy. He coasted through school without effort. His teachers saw potential, but also frustration. Here was a mind capable of greatness, wasting itself on mediocrity. At age 17, Stephen entered Oxford University to study physics. His father wanted him to study medicine. Stephen refused. He was drawn to the biggest questions in the universe. How did it begin? How would it end? What were the fundamental laws that governed everything? At Oxford, Stephen continued his pattern of minimal effort and maximum results. He attended few lectures. He rarely studied, yet he solved problems that stumped his classmates. His tutors were baffled. Here was someone who could understand the most complex physics with seemingly no effort. But he showed no passion, no drive, no ambition. Stephen was bored. The work was too easy. The questions were too small. He wanted to tackle the mysteries of existence itself. In 1962, he graduated from Oxford with a first-class degree, but he felt empty, directionless. He had mastered physics, but physics hadn't mastered him. He decided to pursue a PhD in cosmology at Cambridge University. He wanted to study the universe itself, its origins, its structure, its ultimate fate. But first, the universe had other plans for Stephen Hawking. In his first year at Cambridge, Stephen noticed something wrong. He was becoming clumsy, dropping things, stumbling. His speech was slurring slightly. At first, he ignored it. He was young, brilliant, and invincible, or so he thought. Then came the fall. Stephen was ice skating when he lost his balance and couldn't get up. His friends laughed. Stephen didn't. Something was seriously wrong. The tests began. Doctors poked and prodded. They ran scan after scan. They asked question after question. Finally, they had an answer. Motor neuron disease, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Stephen was 21 years old. The doctors gave him 2 years to live. 2 years to say goodbye. 2 years to watch his body slowly shut down. 2 years to see his dreams die before his eyes. Most people would have given up. Stephen Hawking was not most people. The diagnosis changed everything. Suddenly, Stephen had a deadline. Not for an assignment or an exam, but for his entire existence. For the first time in his life, Stephen Hawking was motivated. He threw himself into his research with desperate intensity. If he only had 2 years, he would make them count. He would solve the biggest problems in physics. He would understand the universe before the universe took him away. But there was something else that motivated him even more than physics. Her name was Jane Wilde. Stephen had met Jane at a party just before his diagnosis. She was studying languages at Cambridge. She was brilliant, beautiful, and completely unimpressed by his reputation as a physics genius. When Stephen told her about his disease, Jane faced an impossible choice: fall in love with a man who was dying, or walk away and protect her heart. Jane chose love. They married in 1965. Stephen had already outlived his prognosis. The doctors said 2 years. It had been 3, and he was still fighting. Jane became more than his wife. She became his caregiver, his advocate, his connection to the world as his body slowly failed him. But Stephen's mind was soaring. In 1965, he completed his PhD thesis on the properties of expanding universes. It was brilliant work, but it was just the beginning. Stephen became fascinated by black holes. These mysterious objects were so dense that nothing could escape them. Not matter, not energy, not even light itself. Most physicists saw black holes as cosmic dead ends. Stephen saw them as cosmic laboratories. He began applying quantum mechanics to black holes. What he discovered would revolutionize physics. In 1974, Stephen made a shocking announcement. Black holes weren't completely black. They emitted radiation. They slowly evaporated over time. The physics community was stunned. How could something that trapped everything emit anything? Stephen had discovered what became known as Hawking radiation. It was a breakthrough that merged quantum mechanics with general relativity. Two theories that had never played well together. But Stephen's body was failing as fast as his mind was succeeding. By the 1970s, he needed a wheelchair. His speech was becoming harder to understand. Simple tasks became monumental challenges. Yet his scientific output was extraordinary. Paper after paper, discovery after discovery. Stephen was rewriting our understanding of the universe while his own universe was shrinking. In 1979, Stephen was appointed Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge. It was the same chair once held by Isaac Newton. Stephen was 37 years old and had already outlived his prognosis by 16 years. But his greatest triumph was still to come. In the early 1980s, Stephen began working on a book, not for physicists, but for everyone. He wanted to explain the universe to ordinary people, to share the wonder and beauty of cosmic truth. Publishers were skeptical. Who would read a book about physics by a disabled scientist? Stephen's agent struggled to find interest. Finally, Bantam Books took a chance. They printed a modest first run and hoped for the best. In 1988, A Brief History of Time was published. It became a phenomenon. The book spent 237 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. It sold over 25 million copies worldwide. It was translated into 40 languages. Suddenly, Stephen Hawking wasn't just a brilliant physicist. He was a global icon. But success came with a price. The book tour was grueling. Stephen's condition was worsening. In 1985, he had contracted pneumonia and needed a tracheotomy. He lost his voice forever. Doctors fitted him with a computer that could speak for him. Stephen programmed it with a slight American accent. He joked that it made him sound more intelligent. The computer became part of his identity. That distinctive electronic voice became as famous as his theories. Stephen continued his research, but he also became something else, an inspiration. He appeared on television shows. He guest-starred on The Simpsons and Star Trek. He met with world leaders and celebrities. He became living proof that the human spirit could triumph over any obstacle. But Stephen never forgot his first love, understanding the universe. In the 1990s and 2000s, he continued pushing the boundaries of physics. He worked on the information paradox of black holes. He explored the possibility of time travel. He searched for a theory of everything, that would unite all the forces of nature. Stephen made bets with other physicists about cosmic questions. He usually lost, but he always paid up with good humor. Science, he believed, should be fun. As the years passed, Stephen's condition continued to deteriorate. He could only move his cheek muscle to operate his computer. Communication became painfully slow, yet his mind remained sharp. His curiosity never dimmed. His sense of humor never faded. Stephen's journey wasn't just about overcoming a terminal diagnosis. It was about redefining what it means to be human in the face of impossible odds. When he was first diagnosed with ALS, Stephen went through the stages that many terminal patients experience: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. But Stephen found something beyond acceptance: purpose. He realized that his limited time made every moment precious. Every equation mattered, every discovery counted. Every day was a gift that he refused to waste. His relationship with Jane was central to this transformation. She didn't just marry Stephen despite his disease. She married him because of who he was becoming in response to it. She saw the fire that the diagnosis had lit in his mind. Their early years together were filled with both love and struggle. Jane had to learn how to care for someone whose body was failing while supporting his intellectual ambitions. She became his hands when his stopped working, his voice when his became unclear. But Jane was more than a caregiver. She was his intellectual equal, challenging his ideas and keeping him grounded. When Stephen became lost in abstract mathematics, Jane reminded him of the human element in his work. The progression of Stephen's disease was unpredictable. Some years were better than others. Some abilities disappeared gradually, others vanished overnight. But Stephen adapted to each change with remarkable resilience. When he could no longer write equations by hand, he learned to visualize them entirely in his mind. When he could no longer speak clearly, he became more precise with his words. When he could no longer move his body, he moved through the universe with his imagination. His students at Cambridge were initially intimidated by his reputation and condition. But Stephen had a gift for making complex ideas simple. He could explain black holes using everyday analogies. He made quantum mechanics feel like common sense. The success of A Brief History of Time surprised everyone, including Stephen. He had written it to pay for his daughter's education. Instead, it made him wealthy and famous beyond his wildest dreams. But fame came with complications. Stephen became a celebrity scientist, which meant less time for actual science. He had to balance his research with public appearances, interviews, and the constant demands of being a global icon. Stephen handled fame with the same humor he brought to everything else. He appeared in popular culture not as a tragic figure, but as someone who had transcended his limitations. He was proof that intelligence and wit could overcome any physical barrier. His work on black holes continued to evolve throughout his career. The discovery of Hawking radiation was just the beginning. He explored how black holes might connect to other universes. He investigated whether information that falls into a black hole is truly lost forever. These weren't just abstract questions. They touched on fundamental issues about the nature of reality itself. If information can be destroyed, it violates basic principles of quantum mechanics. If it can't be destroyed, where does it go when it falls into a black hole? Stephen spent decades wrestling with this paradox. He made bets with other physicists about the answer. He changed his mind multiple times as new evidence emerged. This wasn't indecision, it was the scientific method in action. His willingness to admit when he was wrong made Stephen a better scientist. He understood that being right wasn't as important as finding the truth, and the truth about the universe was often stranger than anyone imagined. In 2014, the movie The Theory of Everything told Stephen's love story with Jane. It won Eddie Redmayne an Oscar for his portrayal of Stephen. Stephen attended the premiere. Seeing his life on the big screen, he was moved to tears. The boy who had taken apart toys to understand them had become a story that inspired the world. Stephen Hawking died on March 14, 2018. It was Einstein's birthday. Another cosmic coincidence. He was 76 years old. The doctors had given him 2 years. He had lived for 55 years beyond their prediction. But Stephen's legacy extends far beyond his longevity. He revolutionized our understanding of black holes. He showed that the universe had a beginning, but might not have an end. He made the cosmos accessible to millions of people who had never thought about physics. Most importantly, he proved that the human spirit is stronger than any disease. Stephen faced the ultimate disability with grace, humor, and determination. He never let his condition define him. He defined himself through his work, his curiosity, and his refusal to give up. He once said, "We are just an advanced breed of monkeys on a minor planet of a very average star. But we can understand the universe. That makes us something very special." Stephen Hawking understood the universe better than almost anyone who ever lived. But perhaps his greatest discovery was about human potential itself. He showed us that our minds can soar even when our bodies fail. That curiosity can overcome any obstacle. That the pursuit of knowledge is the most human thing we can do. The doctors said Stephen wouldn't survive. They were wrong. He didn't just survive. He thrived. He inspired. He transformed our understanding of everything. Stephen Hawking proved that the universe's greatest mystery isn't black holes or quantum mechanics. It's the unlimited potential of the human spirit. The man who was supposed to die young lived long enough to touch eternity. And in doing so, he showed all of us that our limitations are often just illusions. The universe is vast and mysterious. But thanks to Stephen Hawking, it's a little less mysterious than it was before. And that makes all the difference.